Hi guys, welcome to Algebra Bootcamp Topic 4. We are working with functions still, and we're doing some operations with functions. Operations are just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing using either the variable, in this case t, or by plugging in a number. We are actually not going to do division, we're just going to do the first three that I mentioned. So we'll start off by just using t. Now, if we want to add these two together, we can write it as g of t plus h of t, or we can write this as g plus h of t. These two things just mean add them together. They mean the exact same thing, it's just slightly different notation. So to do that, right, so this is addition. And to do that, we are just going to add them together. So we're going to have t squared, which is g of t squared plus 3, plus h of t, which is 4t minus 3. And then any simplifying that comes with it, so we have some like terms here, they actually cancel out to 0. So our final answer is t squared plus 4t. Cool, so we've come to this conclusion that, let's see, I'll write this elsewhere. Come to the conclusion that g of t, g plus h of t is, t squared plus 4t. Great. Let's look at subtraction next. So subtraction, the order definitely matters that we do this in, because, you know, addition, it doesn't matter the order that you do, but subtraction does. So for subtraction, let's say we wanted to do g minus h of t. All right, that means we're going to start with g of t, so t squared plus 3. Then we're subtracting all of h, so we need to put it in parentheses since we're subtracting. Then we'll have to distribute that minus sign through. So we'll have t squared plus 3 minus 4t, and then plus a 3, since we're distributing the minus sign through. Again, we combine like terms, so that gives us t squared minus 4t plus 6. Awesome. So we've done one subtracting. We did g minus h of t equals t squared minus 4t plus 6. All right, what if we did subtraction in an alternate way? What if we did h minus g of t? Okay, if we do it that way, we have to start with h and then subtract g. So we're subtracting in parentheses t squared plus 3. Then when we distribute our minus sign, we'll have 4t minus 3 minus t squared minus 3. To then write that in a good standard form order, we want to make sure we have the squared term first. In the other examples, it just already was first. Here it's not. So we'll rewrite as negative t squared. Then we had a plus 4t out front. Then we combine our like terms of negative 3 and another negative 3 for a minus 6 at the end. So the order definitely matters with subtraction, as you already know. It's not commutative like adding or multiplication is. So the order definitely matters when you subtract. You need parentheses. Those are some tips to get the right answer when you're subtracting. Great, let's do one last operation, which is multiplication. All right, to multiply, we can do that in either order because multiplication, like addition, is commutative. So we can write it as g times h of t. All right, to multiply, we're going to put them both in parentheses. So we'll have t squared plus 3 times 4t minus 3. And when we do this, we'll have to do our distributive property with the t squared first. So when we multiply t squared times 4t, we'll get 4t cubed. Next, we're multiplying t squared by a minus 3. So that will give us minus 3t squared. Next, we're going to distribute our 3 through the second parentheses here. So we do 3 times 4t and get plus 12t. And then we're going to distribute the 3 to the negative 3 to get minus 9. And that is how we multiply. Now, I'm going to do one final example with a number. So let's say you were asked to find g times h of negative 1. All right, if we were asked to find g times h of negative 1, that means that we need to first multiply g times h and get a new function, which we just did. Then we need to plug in negative 1. Well, I already have that function. It's right here. I multiplied them together. That was this. So now, in order to evaluate it at negative 1, I'm going to take this function and literally plug in negative 1 everywhere that there's a t in these 3 spots. Now be careful since it's negative, so it's 4, and then we're going to cube negative 1, minus 3, then we'll square negative 1, plus 12, which is just multiplied by negative 1, minus 9. Okay, we have to be aware of our order of operations, so we first have to cube. We do not multiply first, we first cube. To cube means negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. That gives us a negative 1. So this is 4 times a negative 1 minus 3. Then the next thing we have to do is square negative 1. When you square negative 1, we get a positive 1. Here we can just multiply. There's no exponent we have to do first, so that gives us a minus 12. And then a minus 9 at the end. Okay, so this gives us negative 4, minus 3, minus 12, minus 9. Okay, when we combine all these negative values, we'll be left with negative 28. All right, let's move on to the next example. All right, I'm going to do 3 examples here with these new 2 functions, g and h. If you feel confident with this, you can scroll to the end and begin the assignment. But I just want to show a couple more examples of plugging in numbers versus plugging in, so a number versus plugging in a variable. They're really similar. All right, so for number 1, we have to first add g plus h. Now what you can, and then we'll plug in 2. Now alternatively, you could just plug in 2 here, and then also plug in 2 here and then add them together. But I'm going to practice on just adding them together first. So g plus h of n first gives us, adding them together, so n squared plus 4 plus 2n, and then we'll add h. So plus negative 3n, or we can just write minus 3n plus 2. All right, then combining some like terms, we'll have n squared, then we'll have a minus 1n, and then we'll have a plus 6. All right, I'm running out of room here. So now I want to plug in 2. So I'll have 2 squared minus 2 plus 6. So we'll have 4 minus 2 plus 6, and that'll give us 2 plus 6, or 8. All right, our next one was subtraction. It was g minus h of n. So we'll take g, n squared plus 4 plus 2n, and then we'll subtract h. So we're subtracting, in parentheses, remember, minus 3n plus 2 Then we'll have n squared plus 4 plus 2n plus 3n minus 2 when we distribute the negative. Combining like terms will give us n squared plus 5n plus 2. And that one we didn't have to plug in any numbers. Our last one I'm going to do in a slightly different way just to show you the alternative method. I'm going to plug in -2 for each one of these and then multiply them together. So I'll first do g of -2 and then we'll multiply it by h of -2. This is an alternate way of doing it. Rather than first multiplying out using n's and then plugging in -2, we can plug in the -2 first. All right, if we plug in -2 for g, we'll have -2 squared plus 4 plus 2 times -2. So it's our first one, g of -2, times h of -2 would be -3 times -2 plus 2. All right, squaring -2 gives us 4, then plus that 4, and then minus a 4, since we multiplied here. For h of -2, we'll do -3 times -2 first to get a +6 plus a 2. All right, so it looks like this first term will end up being a 4, and this term will end up being an 8, and when we multiply, we'll get 32. That's an alternate way of plugging in a number. So there are some examples of operations with functions. Next, you'll see your daily assignment. Right, here's your assignment for today. As you can see, there's some where you're just going to get x in your final answer and some where you'll get an actual value. And then number 2, you'll just get x in both of your final 2 answers here. All right, please complete this on your own paper, upload it to the Dropbox on Blackbaud, and await tomorrow's video. Take care, guys.